Buddy, and welcome to this week's edition of TV Talk, where we talk popular television shows and/or critically acclaimed TV shows with an objectivist spin, and sometimes throw in a little Atlas Shrugged analysis just for kicks. With me are my partners in crime, Jennifer Bouani and Jacqueline Schumann. Today, we are going to be talking about a mini series created by Netflix and Mike Flanagan called Midnight Mass. Before we get into the plot points, the characters, and some intense spoilers for anybody who did not take the time to watch the 7 episodes, I think we have a couple of announcements to make that are pretty important with respect to the strike and a phenomenon that's going to be going on overseas, or down south, as they say. So why don't we deal with these announcements first before we get into the thick of things with Midnight Mass, which I think I am the only person on this panel who actually enjoys the show. I want to say these two lovely writers seem to be allied with my lovely writer wife in thinking the show is not good, but we'll get into that in a little while. Guys, you guys got a very important announcement, so I'd love to get to that. Go ahead, whoever wants to do it.
Oh, you're on. I was on mute, but I'm not on mute now. So yes, tomorrow, Saturday, December 4th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and whatever time that is for everybody else, Jennifer and I and Mark are going to be on a panel with the Ayn Rand Center Latin America for the Ayn Rand Con, where we will be talking about the strike. We'll be talking about kind of how it came to be, and we'll be providing some key updates on the status of the production. So
translated in Spanish and Portuguese. So send it to your Spanish speaking and Portuguese speaking friends.
Especially if those Spanish speaking and Portuguese speaking friends are what are known as whales, meaning have tons and tons of money to invest in a great project. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we agree.
So that's a great announcement. Any other announcements before we continue? We don't have any polls to review or anything this week, do we? We've dropped the polling.
We've dropped
the polls. I think there was probably only 2 people that participated, and that might have just been Jennifer and me.
And here we thought people wanted to be involved in the creative process.
I know, right?
We might not have been giving them the impression that they were actually creating something in strike. Maybe our polls were a little too flippant sometimes. Should Dagny have a tattoo? Yes, of course.
I don't think we ever had that as a poll question. We said, should Dagny have art in her office? And there was some
tattoo. That's art.
That was a legit question. Yeah.
I think she would have a tattoo, actually.
You do?
I do. I think she'd have a little one. It wouldn't be a tramp stamp. I think it might be it might be one like on the back of her shoulder. Or
how is that not a tramp stamp? How is not a tattoo, period, just a tramp stamp?
Well, the tramp stamp is the tattoo that goes on the lower back, right up above your butt.
I know that, but why do they call that particular tattoo a tramp stamp?
Generally because
you're a tramp.
Point of view.
Tramp if you have a tattoo on your butt. I don't know.
Okay.
That's just what they're called.
Yeah.
They're just called that. How do we get from polls to tramp stamps, Mark? Only you could take us there.
Maybe it was a poll question that I was positing in my mind and just never got out there. But sometimes I confuse what's happening in my mind with what's going on in the real world. Anyway, guys, Midnight Mass, this crazy miniseries created by Mike Flanagan, who I am a big fan of. I think Mike has found his genre of movie making for sure. For any of you who don't know Mike Flanagan, he directed and probably wrote, I want to say, Hush, that also starred Kate Siegel, his wife, who seems to be in everything that he produces, which is great. Keep it in the family. And also an interesting adaptation of a Stephen King novella, I want to say, called Gerald's Game. If you haven't seen that, it's kind of cool psychological horror. And the premise of that is, two people in a marriage that's dissolving go off to a isolated cabin to re-spark their marriage. They get into a little S&M role playing, and he dies and leaves her handcuffed and alone in the bed. and what happens after that is quite interesting fodder for a horror film. And he's also I think he's also a Netflix darling now, because he's done House on Haunted Hill, which I'm about 3 or 4 episodes into and enjoying very much. He might have, did he do The Haunting at Bly Manor or whatever that other Netflix series called? All the same people are involved in that, it seems. So I'm assuming that's a Mike Flanagan thing too. Anyway, Mike Flanagan is a pretty cool director, horror director. And I think he's an interesting writer as well, though I think my two partners in crime here may differ with me. Now, the series stars Hamish Linklater, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, as Father Paul Hill, the enigmatic Father Paul Hill. Kate Siegel is Aaron Green. Zach Gilford is Riley Flynn, and Kristen Lehman plays Anne Flynn, and Samantha Sloyan is the evil Bev Keane. And there's a whole host of other folks. It's an ensemble cast because the whole thing takes place on a little isolated island called Crockett, where a young man comes home to rebuild his life after killing a young woman in a drunken driving incident. And Crockett itself is a town where sort of dreams go to die. It's been beset by natural and man-made disasters, and the town is depressed. People are leaving. It's a place in need of miracles. Suddenly, this new priest comes into town, and miracles start to happen. Of course, if it's a horror premise, there's something below those miracles that are going to be frightening when they're revealed. And to me, that's exactly what the story was about. Now, spoiler alert for anybody: it is a vampire genre movie, but I think it's an interestingly done vampire genre movie. I don't think I've seen any of the tropes exactly produced in the way that they were produced in this movie. I think they had some interesting spins on the typical vampire genre. And like any good monster movie, the monster isn't the real monster. And I definitely want to talk about that. But guys, I want to get your impressions first of all. What should we talk about first here? As writers, the first thing you notice about a story, is there something that pops out at you about a story that immediately tells you this is good or this is bad? I can tell you what my wife might say.
Well, I'd say for me, it is, it's a factor of two things. Is this entertaining and interesting enough that I want to stick around and find out what happens next? And then what determines how long I stick around and what I want to find out next is how compelling those characters are, how compelling they're written, and how much I feel like I can, not like I need to empathize with them so much, but I need to be interested enough in them that I really care about what happens.
And did you find those questions answered in the affirmative or the negative in this case?
I would say for me, it was more for the negative. But it was still, we were talking about this yesterday. What I like about what we do here on TV Talk is that we will watch we'll commit to a show and we'll watch either an entire season or the duration of the show. And so, whereas otherwise I might not stick around to watch, I end up now sticking around to watch, and I'm glad that I did. I think it's an important series to watch. What do you think, Jennifer?
I have mixed emotions. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. There are things I liked about it and appreciate. I think that it's high concept. I mean, it's what if angels were vampires is a pretty easy thing to say and spit out and think about, and all the conflicts that would drive. I love that it's on an island, like that show, what was it, Dome or something, where everybody was under the dome. It's encapsulated. It's a community.
Stephen King did the Dome, and he likes to isolate people, which I think is a very good,
effective.
It's a very effective thing to do in horror. The Shining, they were isolated in the Overlook Hotel. The Dome, they're isolated underneath this celestial thing that these
Poltergeist,
alien children put over their town. Was Poltergeist, they were isolated as well?
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, they're in a house.
that's not
The
isolated.
house was in a neighborhood.
Oh, well, I mean, it stayed basically in a house. It's not like they were effectively locked into the house by they couldn't leave.
Misery. I mean, the author is brought into the woman's universe, and she lives in a house that's very secluded from the rest of town. And she could do anything she wants.
It's also very cost effective.
Makes for one location, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I like that. But on the other hand, there was way too much dialogue, a lot of telling and not enough showing. And like Jack said, because they're talking about their backstories more than showing us what actually happened. Like, for example, we don't know, we didn't see the story of how the woman got, was her Erin, how she got pregnant or anything. Like, there's just a disconnect from attaching to these characters that I think once you watch them make decisions, have face choices and have to make decisions, you kind of get it more invested in them. And I don't think there was enough of that. There wasn't enough of that in the beginning, and not enough conflict. So I had a little bit of slow start, but it was artistically done, and the metaphor that it's suggesting about religion is super interesting and definitely generates a lot of thoughts and conversation that I hope we get into.
Yeah, for people who don't know what that means, showing and instead of telling, the medium of theater is a medium wherein the dialogue should be heard, and it's written to be heard. And there can be considered quite a bit more what we call exposition in a theatrical piece than there is in a visual piece like a television or a medium like any cinematic medium, where you say less and show more. Although there are playwrights who have crossed over, like Aaron Sorkin, who write 300-page screenplays, and somehow all that dialogue seems to work. I don't know how. I don't know that he cuts any of it, but it works somehow. Yeah. So let's talk about the ideas in Midnight Mass, because I think that's what sort of makes it important. And philosophical. It strives to be a philosophical show, and it strives to answer the questions that all of us have at one point or another in our lives. What is the meaning of life? What is death like? What does it mean with respect to life? What will we experience in death? We fear it so much. We make such a big production of it. We create whole philosophies to avoid awareness of it. But what is it all about? What happens after that? And what is religion? What is real religion? What's fake religion? How do we know the difference between the two? I think these are some interesting ideas that are explicitly put forth in the TV show. And what would you say about some of this stuff? And we talked about it quite a bit last night, and probably should have taped a lot of that. But what would you guys say about that with respect to, did you say metaphor about religion, Jennifer? What did you say?
Yeah, I think about the communion, and they're drinking the blood of Christ, and how they're taking all of that in. They're taking in the religion. They're taking in the sayings that they have, the Bible verses, and they use them. And I think yesterday you had an example of one that is used in two different ways. So whatever fits the moment. But they take in this communion, this blood, and I like how it's being compared to the vampires, how it sort of sucks the self out of you. You have to sort of sacrifice yourself to this belief system and to the community, and it's very sacrificial. I think the priest talks a lot about suffering, which I loved. Riley being this character that represented the atheist, going, that sounds monstrous. How much? So I thought there was some kind of parallel being drawn there between the vampires, the blood being drunk, and what that does to the self.
Well, for you non-Catholics out there, and Jennifer, you're a non-Catholic, right? You're born in the South,
Yeah, I was raised a Methodist, yeah, but I'm not.
Methodist,
I was
and,
raised Baptist.
and Jax, you're Baptist. You're both evil. I
I'm
just
not
want you to know
currently
that.
Baptist, by the way.
You're not saved. I just want you
Well,
to know
no,
that right
you're
off the bat.
evil because you're the one who requires like a medium between me and God. And,
That's what
I'm able to
Jesus
just
is.
I'm able to talk
That's
to God directly.
but that's what Jesus is. He's always your medium. So whether you're a Baptist, a
He's not a
Methodist,
Monsignor, though. He's a Jesus.
yeah. So for all you non-Catholics out there, the miracle of the Eucharist really is supposed to be a miracle. The Catholics believe that the bread and wine are literally transformed into the body and blood of Christ, and you ingest that virtue, the virtue of Christ, into your body. It's one of the things that turned me off about Christianity when I really started to get into the fact that if you buy the miracle, you believe you're cannibalizing someone, and that cannibalization on any level is somehow moral, good, or just. Really, really disturbed me. And in this case, these people, in fact, are ingesting someone's blood, and it is having the effect that the Eucharist is supposed to have on people, the miraculous transformation of you into something else, your Christian form, your perfect self.
Eternal life, right?
In this case, eternal life, yeah. But that body and blood of Christ is supposed to have that spiritual transformation. It's supposed to affect that spiritual transformation in you, and it's actually happening in real life, which is one of the reasons I think Father Paul Hill is doing it. He's promoting it because he actually is. I think he's enamored of the idea that the miraculous is in fact taking place. But what would you say about all this, Jax? Oh,
So
one question goes for you.
One thing I think is interesting was going back and looking at an article written by EW where they interviewed Mike Flanagan. So an interesting thing. So Mike Flanagan, this is a story near his heart because he grew up very Catholic. And at one point when he was a child and going to Sunday school, he asked his parents, so if we're drinking blood and eating flesh to stay alive forever, aren't we just vampires? And this is kind of like where this idea was born. And of course, his parents are horrified at that. But just as Mark was saying that the holy, it's called the Holy Sacrament, right? It's that is supposed to have a transformative effect. It's supposed to physically transform flesh and blood supernaturally on the altar. That's like a true, like they really believe that. So he took that. And like his concept was, what if it really was a vampire? Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the whole huge, spoiler alert, misunderstanding of the Monsignor is we call him Father Paul, where he actually he experiences a vampire event and sees it as a miraculous event, and thus everything kind of leads from that. And it so much of the rest of the story is based on what he actually believes to be truly happening versus what really is happening. Him coming to the understanding that, oh shit, I thought that vampire was an angel, because angels are horrible people. Like God sends angels out to ruin, to go commit genocide and stuff. Angels can't be pretty. They have to be horrible. So it made sense with the narrative. And then what happens when he realizes, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And that's kind of an interesting divergence where the father finally does understand that what's happening to him is not a miraculous event, yet the antagonist, I guess you could say the human antagonist, Bev, who is more or less the blind follower and is determined to stick a round peg in a square hole, or vice versa, to ensure the narrative of the Bible. She absolutely refuses to accept what reality is. and chooses to, as you were saying, Mark, yesterday, I like what you said about the difference between a cause, so maybe you can explain a little bit about what we were talking about yesterday with cause versus morality or code or whatever you were saying.
Yeah. I don't think Bev Keane is a blind. I think she is a fanatical follower, a la Joseph Goebbels or Hermann Hesse to Hitler. It's the fanatical belief in the cause that it doesn't make you blind to reality. It makes you rationalize the things that are happening in favor of the cause. The cause takes moral primacy over everything. And I thought that what this illustrated very well was religion as ideology and religion as a component of relating to your fellow man, where and that's primarily motivated by redemption and forgiveness, as opposed to the wider apocalyptic vision and the spread of an idea through the world and the equation of salvation with the spread of that idea. That's an ideological perspective that Bev has most of all. Father Paul sees everything through the scriptural prism, and so he interprets, even evil things that are happening as means to his end. So both Father Paul and Bev Keane are ideologues, purists, idealists, believers, true believers, and when you're a true believer, you of necessity sacrifice a moral code, a rigid sense of truth about right and wrong that's individually tailored to your own context. You automatically sacrifice that in favor of the ideology when the ideology becomes king. And as you see a perfect example of it as Bev rationalizes away increasingly horrible things that are happening with the Father, with Scripture. And she quotes chapter and verse from Scripture. There's probably nobody besides the Father who knows the good book better than her. But when it comes time that the Father has decided that he's actually unleashed something terrible in the world, that he's actually fallen and not advanced the faith, she uses the very same Scripture to ostracize him from the group and to take power. So yeah, not only do we see the power of ideology in people's life, the power to rationalize evil through ideology. We also see the effect of power on those pathotypes, those types of human beings, and what power can do to them.
And what they will do with power, right? Mm-hmm. I like to look at it. I'd rather look at it for not what power does to them, but what they will do with power, because I do want to distinguish between power is not an animated object. It's not a thing that exists as an entity on its own, that is this living, breathing thing that can come in and possess you. It's what happens when people who are power hungry get it, basically.
Right. And that's where I think objectivists are interesting. And this is where our ethics come in, that are different than what's dominant in the culture. You will hear the cliche, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's accepted as you say, as an intrinsic evil, right? But an objectivist would say, no, the person who seeks power is already morally corrupt. Right. And the fact that they're seeking power over other individuals, which is what power is the kind of power we're talking about, demonstrates that they're fractured psychologically. And so whatever happens when they achieve that power is the result of something already existent in their personality. And that's where I think we're very different from the rest of the world in our ethics, and I think way ahead of the game, to be honest with you.
I want to, we've got just a couple of super chats. First one from Sammy's board again for a pound and a kitty cat. Thank you. And Allison says for $2, says Bev made herself heard all right. Props to the actress. And I completely agree with that. That actress was amazing. I mean, she made that character so hateful, and in such a way, that it was fairly compelling for me. It was too bad that I was happy when she died in the end. I was very, very happy. I was happy that she died, kind of fairly miserable as well. But that actress did an amazing job in that role.
I thought it was over the top. I felt like,
Did you?
yeah, I actually made a note when I was watching that how she was so over the top. She was so easy to hate. That, yeah, it was kind of far end of the spectrum.
A little mustache twirly.
But I didn't find it like, did you see The Mist? Did you guys ever see The Mist?
A long time ago. Yeah.
Okay, so that at one point they're stranded in a supermarket, everybody, and eventually two camps start forming: the secular atheists who sort of want to help each other out, and this religious community that's where this Marcia Gay Harden is the actress who rises to the top as the queen fanatic who ends up being able to dictate who lives and who dies. I mean, she's a complete freak. Now, I would consider that, or Carrie's mom in Carrie, in the 70s version of Carrie, particularly, over the top. But Samantha Sloyan, I thought, played a bloodless and relentlessly rational person.
What made her just like, there's a disconnect, and maybe I missed it in the story, but when the priest kills that guy, and he had the horrible scene where he's sucking on the brain, and she comes in and sees all this mess, her reaction was not real to me, and she just buys it. No, this is the way the scriptures have, that was just over the top to me.
Well, she's the protector of Father Paul. And when she walks,
just ate somebody's brain out.
She didn't see that. What she sees is him in the corner, covered in blood, but in shock. And all he can say is, "I don't know why I did that. I don't know why." He's troubled. He's in a state of crisis, and so she steps up, as the good lieutenant would, and takes her captain by the hand and leads him properly to the promised land, because he's losing his way. I don't know. She didn't seem like. I don't know that I haven't seen people like her in the world. I can say that I haven't seen people like Marcia Gay Harden's character in The Mist, those kind of, or Carrie's mom, the religious fanatic that is so eccentric that they can't fit in society at all. This is a woman who could walk amongst us. She can teach Sunday school.
There's also sort of the hint to her backstory, which I would have, again, one of my other criticisms of the show is that you don't see enough of kind of how these characters got to, the main ones at least, how these characters got to be there. Riley, you see that, it's done really well. That's why, to me, he's the most compelling character. You don't see enough of Aaron. And also there are hints with Bev that I don't know if she killed people or she did really bad nefarious things in order to build that hall or the shelter or whatever. So you're already set up for, okay, Bev is some kind of criminal, sociopath, and she's done criminal stuff before. She's done bad stuff before. So this wouldn't be too much of a stretch for her to cover up this kind of thing. I don't think that she actually sees it as a crime. I think she sees it as God's work. It is, and I see that when she comes in and he's just eaten a brain, she's not looking at the horror of that. She's looking at the horror of what that has done to Father Paul. So I can get on board with that. But it was still
once again, when you're an ideologue, anything.
But if you walk in a room and a brain's been eaten and you don't react to that, there's something wrong.
Well, what about all the cleaners, right? The wolf from Pulp Fiction, right? Who comes in and he cleans up,
Yeah, but that's comedic, and that's
Yeah.
tongue in cheek, though. That's not even supposed to be real so much. It's you're supposed to laugh at how casual he is about such a horrible thing. But I would say something else. I would say, look, you see people animated by ideology all the time in news and print. You see them on social media all the time. How little they actually care for human beings, flesh and blood human beings. How driven they are by rage and something else that animates them. And perhaps you're right. It would have been interesting to get into Bev Keene's backstory to see what made her a bloodless, rationalizing pathotype. What made her that way? What cut her off from human feeling? What made her immune to the real religion that we see take place when, you know, everybody just goes off into the field before the sun rises, and they ask for forgiveness and they seek redemption and they love one another and they sing praise to God, which is the real religion, as she's trying to, you know, bury herself in sand to avoid the consequences of her
I would have
own
been
actions.
fascinated to spend 10 minutes on that. I mean, it doesn't take long to establish, that, and to get me to a place where I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that. Now it makes sense that she walks into that room and doesn't react to that.
But was Mike, I wonder, hesitant as I would be as a writer who likes virtue and likes concretizing virtue in art? Did he feel like seeing her upbringing or seeing more of her backstory would make you sympathize with her in the way you sympathize, say, with Joe in You, because he was an orphan and he was protecting his mother and he has a complex about being a savior, and that just sort of cemented a pathological personality in the guy, so you end up sort of rooting for this sick motherfucker.
You don't have to. I haven't seen You, but I understand the point of it. But you don't have to show the sympathetic part. You just need to show how this person got to that place. Like, I don't think that there's a backstory or a storyline at all that would convince me that Himmler was a victim of circumstances, or, you know, that, like, there's nothing. And people have tried to do that with Hitler too. He was beaten as a child, and it's like, yeah, lots of people have been beaten by a child.
He had one testicle.
Yeah,
he had one testicle.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean,
so
maybe that's it. Maybe Bev had one testicle.
So does Forrest
maybe she
Griffin.
had one testicle too many.
So did Ilya Kazan. They didn't murder, 20 million people.
There's a funny comment in here from Mary Aline, who says, I was raised Catholic. Midnight Mass reminds me of the time the nativity scene caught fire on Christmas Eve. And that happened.
Oh boy. We're going to have to get into that on Clubhouse.
Yes.
Do tell
that story.
Yeah, well, so I'm assuming she means that it wasn't an entirely pleasant experience for her, or maybe it was. Maybe that was a cathartic experience. When the nativity scene caught on fire, Mary Aline, did you dance and celebrate? Did you roast marshmallows over it? Were you free at last? Thank God Almighty. Or was it?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Or just was it a nightmare revisited? I don't know.
Can we talk about that old people makeup?
Okay. Yes.
So annoyed with it.
This was very distracting to my wife as well, because like with you guys,
it gave away the plot.
She foresaw the plot long in advance. Unfortunately, I'm not blessed with that kind of foresight when I'm watching something. So I just say, "Oh, bad old person makeup," and I watch how the person's acting, and I realize that they're presented with a very difficult acting challenge. I mean, when you're a young person, acting old and senile is an extremely difficult task, and in deference to the actress who had to do such an incredibly difficult thing, I'd have to wonder how much time she had to prepare for that, because that's an extreme characterization so far outside of your own natural life that everything you do, you have to work out. You have to work it out. And there were times when she just couldn't hide her youthfulness. And that's partly why the makeup might have seemed bad, because there was a youthful vigor to her, despite and in her eyes. That you can't hide that. That
You
that
could give her,
wouldn't.
I think that there were other ways. I think they could have spent more time on it. It could have been better. It was too much of a giveaway. It was distracting. The second that I saw it, I was like, okay, they're old people. They're not really old people. They're clearly going to become younger. And then I was like, this must be a vampire movie.
Yeah, which gave away the priest. You're like, oh, that must be the
Mhm.
actual priest. He's just younger now.
Right.
The total giveaway all around. You could get away with doing that kind of makeup if it's just like a side plot about the future or something. But when it is built into the story and a part of the plot twist, yeah, doesn't work.
Yeah, I think they
gotta
could
be
have done
better at
different things with it. They could have given her, cataracts, right? They could have, they could have done more subtle things
Mhm.
that were that would make me want to go back and watch it again, like you do with Unbreakable or Sixth Sense, to find those clues that you didn't get the first time around. That's the kind of thing that I would have just I would have had a lot more respect for that kind of storytelling if they had spent more time doing that. As it was, it annoyed the shit out of me.
Well, it's interesting that he chose to do that because in The House on Haunted Hill, he has two different people playing the father in the separate timelines. Two different actors playing the earlier version and the later version. So
You could have done that too,
he
right?
could have,
Yeah.
could have, but
I think it had to be gradual because he was slowly putting it in their communion, like a little at a time.
mhm.
So it had to be a gradual thing. I don't know that you could just have it like boom.
That's true.
I
Yeah.
don't know. They tried to make Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro look young, and so maybe there's a way to do it with CGI
Cast
in
old
the
people,
reverse sense.
make them look
Yeah,
younger.
make and then bring them
That would have
backwards.
worked better.
That would have been, that would have been very cool. I would have gotten on board with that a lot more. So
Hey, but we're Monday morning quarterbacking, and I feel bad because Flanagan, I think
Yeah.
a very creative soul, and I think he tackled a lot
Yeah.
in this show, and you could tell that it comes from his heart,
Mhm.
in a way that a lot of horror doesn't necessarily
Fair point.
come from
Well,
from
yeah, I mean,
personal
it absolutely is the Monday morning quarterback. And, first and foremost, I respect and admire anyone who can get something made and and streaming and done and, of that quality. It is a high quality show. It wasn't, it wasn't like, oh my God, the acting was terrible and
Well,
the exposition was too much. I thought the monologuing was too much. But I still see it as a high quality show.
hey, it got a 7.7 on IMDb. That's not an easy rating to capture. That's pretty dog.
86%, I think, on
Rotten Tomatoes, right? And we did read one cynical article by a nihilistic
Punk.
wokester, yeah, who when somebody's telling you all their pronouns in an article that they've got a beef and with the world, and he was not satisfied with the way this series took down religion, and has the notion that horror in general is supposed to take down quote unquote social convention. And
Right.
whoever's watching us out there, I'd be interested in hearing if you agree with that. Do you think horror is supposed to take down social convention, or does it serve another purpose? I did a presentation in the Objectivist Academic Center about horror, and I related it back to the stories that we told ourselves when we were Neanderthals or early sapiens around the campfire, as we looked out into the darkness and saw the glowing eyes of dire wolves waiting for the campfire to die down. The horror story had a significance. It was a myth that was tied with your survival and with and keeping hubris in check, right? I mean, the story of Ithacus is almost every monster movie, and so I think it served a purpose. Now, we as objectivists can say, do we need that? is that what we want? Do we want the check on progress? Do we want the cautionary tale? Do we want to see the dark side of this beneficent, otherwise beneficent development? Right? We see AI as a tremendous achievement, but then there's the sci-fi guys and the horror people who see the dark side of it. What happens if? I think those are valid considerations, and I don't think it's about wiping out social convention. Sometimes it can critique social convention that deserves to be critiqued, like racism, or some other thing that, like consumerism.
I think what the horror medium offers that non-horror, or I guess non-supernatural mediums do, is it offers you to make those critiques kind of in a safe space. In a way, you're like, if you want to have a critique on racism, you can create this whole science fiction or supernatural world where it's not, you're not touching so close to home when you're talking about specific races that we all know about today. You're talking about alien races or spider races. There's a really, really great book by Werner Vinge called Deepness in the Sky, I think. And
Werner Vinge?
Werner Vinge, yeah.
Werner Vinge?
The author of Werner Vinge.
Werner Vinge. Who the hell is Werner Vinge?
Werner Vinge is you should read the book. It's really, really good. And it talks all about all of these singularities that have happened and these different races that have come about, like a spider race and a dog race. And you realize it's, so much of it is an analogy for what's going on or what goes on in the world, present day world. But anyhow, I digress. So,
yeah, I think you're right. It's a medium that enables us to challenge premises, some that we can't challenge in debate necessarily without coming to blows, just like comedy enables us to laugh at ourselves or to laugh at conventions that deserve to be laughed at. That the mocking of the convention is much better than the critique of the convention. And certainly there's that element in this horror with respect to religion and the juxtaposition of, institutionalized religion with the real religion that takes place between two human beings who want to connect with each other and with the world around them and find answers. And they're very different, very, very, very different. But this guy, thinks that horror should wipe things out. And I think that's bad horror, to be honest with you. When I look at a movie like Funny Games, it pulls a fast one, 3/4 of the way through, I am annihilated emotionally by something like that. And that's not a healthy thing.
Yeah. And I agree with this guy that gave the review. It really puts a leash, like a creative leash around by trying to say, here's what the purpose of horror is. I've decided that this is what horror must show the horrors of religion, or it must it must suit A, B, and C. And that really it puts too much of a leash around the creatively what you can do with horror. I mean, I don't know that there's even when you talk about what is the horror, I don't even know that that's like a valid question. What I think is a more interesting question is look at the types of horror that there are and what did they actually accomplish with that piece of art. I mean, I've seen really terrible horror and really good horror. But we've got like a bunch of super chats, so I just want to kind of get to them real quick while I have them up. Mary,
if you can, before you get to those, is there a way to link to that article? Because I'd love to see what people think about that article and that author. And is there a way to egg that author's house at some point?
Yes,
maybe next Halloween.
I think
you gotta cancel him.
I know. I'm joking. I think he did have valid. I think he did have valid points about horror, but
I think it was in Variety.
But I think they're too steeped in his own sense of nihilism and rage.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I found it. Let me actually put that in El Chatterino. Here is the. Am I allowed to? Will it let me put in? Oh, I guess it lets me put in links. Okay, good. So that should be in the chat now. All right. So, wow, we've got a lot. All right. So Marilyn for $2. I'm not sure the context of this, but maybe you guys will get it. So she says political power or economic power, big difference. Oh, we're talking about power corrupts.
Yeah.
Political power, economical power, big difference. What do you guys think? I don't know. I don't know if there's.
Look, I think Rand makes the distinction very well. Economic power is the power over the world, over the material universe, over the creation of values, not over other human beings. And that's what political power is. So people who seek political power, and religion is an aspect of that, right? Religion is a philosophy and since it's an ethics, primarily associated with an ethics, it's going to be an animating force behind any political philosophy. I mean, look at the right conservative movement in America attempts to use Judeo-Christian traditions as a moral grounding for the representative republic that we have today. Nothing about secularism, nothing about reason, but the Ten Commandments and the life of Jesus. That's what we should emulate going forward to make us a moral republic. So yeah,
you look at like you look at an organization like the Mormon Church, and they have oodles of money. They use their economic power to further their political and religious platforms.
So does the Catholic Church. So does every church, because we live in that mixed economic world where people with money can impose their interests on others through the political system.
Right.
That's not my ideal world, but anyway, I think a religious person is seeking control over another. A philosopher who doesn't cross over into the realm of religion or offer any other epistemology besides reason isn't trying to control another person at all. But that person who says there's another means to knowledge besides your senses, besides your rational faculty, watch out. That person's trying to sell you something in a swamp in Florida or a bridge in Brooklyn.
Pull my other leg, it plays Jingle Bells. So we've got Allison for $5 says, this is an interesting question. I want to know what you guys think. Bev allegedly poisoned the dog, so she was already mentally unwell. She also desires control, example, using the new gym instead of school for safety. What do you guys think about that?
That's her. I agree. She's a control freak. Control freaks, want and lust after power. So that's clearly her motive. And the motive of so many righteous folks out there, quote unquote righteous. It's the motive. You don't think it's the motive behind the leaders of the Black Lives Movement? Not racial equity for real, not justice for real, or quote unquote social justice, but power. The power to dictate language, the power to determine what people say and think, the power to determine outcomes in courts, the power to determine social hierarchies, the power to dictate what you think is right and wrong is their ultimate goal. You look skeptical.
What do you think? But do you think that, were you skeptical, Jennifer?
No.
No, you, Jax.
Oh, I do. I just look skeptical all the time, I think.
That cross. Right?
It's my holy cross that makes me not a whatchamacallit, not a, I can't remember. Not a good
Catholic.
No, the word is like shit. I can't remember.
Anyway.
What do you think? Speaking of mentally unwell, what do you guys think of Bev? Do you guys think Bev is mentally unwell?
Yeah. She's poisoning dogs.
So I guess a sociopath is mentally unwell. But yeah, I don't see her though as like suffering from, like, I don't see her suffer. I see her really embracing her mentally unwellness.
Well, she's to feed it.
Pathotypes like her, I love that word. I'm going to use it as often as possible. Pathotypes like her don't.
Credible witness. That's what I meant to call myself. I'm not a credible witness. All right, go ahead. Proceed.
That's true. You're not a credible witness. Oh, now you're talking Robert Heinlein. Is that what you're? Is this a Robert Heinlein reference?
I'm talking about, that could be, but no, I'm talking about the fact that I'm wearing a cross right now. It should indicate I'm not a credible witness.
Oh, but stranger in a strange land, there is such a thing in their society called a credible witness. Anyway, who has a photographic memory, and they wear a white robe and they're
Oh,
called
the
to any
eidetic, oh yeah. That's
credible. I thought they're called a credible witness, but
I grokked that. I grokked that, Mark.
You did grok that. Wait, what was it? Yeah. Oh, I think a pathotype like Bev is incapable of feeling self-criticism, or incapable of looking inside deep enough to feel discomfort, anxiety, guilt about anything that they do. They feel like they are the elect, like any other narcissistic creep who gloms onto Christianity, Mormonism, Islam, and ends up doing horrible things in the name of their religion. They are doing it because they feel they are the elect.
Mm-hmm.
And it feeds their narcissistic personality disorder, which is, I don't know much about psychology, but I don't think that's curable. Bev is not curable. The only cure for Bev was the sunshine rising and burning her face off.
Amen.
Which she deserved.
Amen, sister.
But we like to see our religious fanatics go that way, right?
I know I do.
Satisfying to see her burn on that beach. Yeah, couldn't happen soon enough.
Ellie for $5. What's $5? Is that's not A in front of the dollar sign? I don't know why I'm tripping on it now, but whatever.
Australian dollars?
Oh, maybe. Ellie asks, what do you guys?
Yeah, that'd be Australian.
Okay. What do you guys think of Riley's support for rational recovery, the alternative to AA's higher power?
I only know about it through a friend of mine who went through rational recovery. It's just a little bit. I do think that AA is a religious indoctrination scheme for sure. There are aspects of it that are very good for the narcissist to get him off of himself, the way that they are unhealthily focused on on themselves and get to recognize other people in the room. And so to the degree that the religious version of AA does that, I think it's great. I think it's a terrible thing to tell people they have no willpower over an element of their life that they do freely choose. And in the big book, Dr. Bill makes a production out of claiming that alcohol for some people is a type of allergen that their nervous systems and bodies respond to differently than the non-alcoholic, and so that the addictive properties can't be overcome because of this reaction. I disagree with that fundamentally. I don't think it's appropriate to look at alcoholism as a disease. I think if more people went to rational recovery, they'd, instead of looking to other powers and mysticism for solutions or guidance in their moral lives, they'd be looking to their free will and their rational action and their rational processes as their saviors. And I think that would be quite a step in the right direction. I love that Riley was going through rational recovery.
And I don't know too much about rational recovery, but I do. One of the things that I really do like from the AA and the NA and the all A's, the all anonymous things, is the serenity prayer, which is, if God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's sage advice. If we just replace the word God with, me, let me, like me, understand that there is really important in life to understand the things that you don't have any control of. In the AA sense, I imagine that they're saying I have no control of these urges that, lead me to drink or use drugs or whatever. But I do think that it's important. And that's kind of the sort of like the little, I'm like at a loss of words today, but it's sort of like a package deal a bit, because it's such a great principle to learn in life, to be able to understand the difference between things you can and cannot change. But then the package deal part of it is you have to accept that you can't know what those things are. You have to trust in a higher power to be able to tell you what you're not able to change. And that's the appealing and horrible thing about religion at the same time.
Right. Well, the thing I think that attracts people to religion is the ready-made answers, the ready-made solutions. There's no work that goes into it. Sometimes it's the work of denying your senses and denying your reason and going against what you know to be true. That does take a certain amount of work and sacrifice. But thinking about what's right, thinking about what you value, thinking about being good, that's hard. That's really hard. And yes, it's true that you may not be able to control urges for things because they come from really deep places in your emotional life. Those seeds were planted so early in your life that you may not have words or be able to form the experiences anymore to know what caused them, but you do have control over what you do about it. I don't think there's any such thing, unless you have some type of brain damage, as the incapacity to control yourself. You get so mad you just kill somebody. No, there's something up with you.
Yeah.
There's something up with you, and we live in a society that doesn't anymore stigmatize lack of impulse control. They promote emotionalism over reason. And increasingly, we're asked to reevaluate our standards according to this new thing, which is to not have standards anymore. So standards of anything, standards of health, body type, beauty, symmetry, goodness, badness, all of that. They want to push it outside of human agency and make it something else. But you understand that point of view brings with it all kinds of dangerous shit, all kinds of really bad stuff. Don't fall for it. But I don't know how we got so far afield. See, this is what's great about this show to me, and why I am the only person in the room to stick by it, like white on rice, because it inspires this kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great that it inspires this conversation. It's not a show that I feel like I could go back to and watch again and again.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't like horror. I mean, there are a lot of shows that are horror that I love, and I could just watch them over and over. This was just by the time I was done with it, I was done with all the characters. I was,
They're all dead.
Yeah, I was like, I am dancing.
Spoiler.
Yeah, everybody dies.
They're not all dead. They're not all dead.
Yes, the two children, the Noah's Ark children, that
new Adam and Eve.
Yeah, the new Adam and Eve that have been protected, and they're going to go off and make a new life. So Riley's younger brother, and then the girl that was cured of her
paralysis.
So Tazy says for $5 she liked Get Out. A great film because it made fun of faux liberals as comedy horror. Interesting. And she liked Seven with Brad Pitt. What's in the box, man? What's in the box? Was a great thriller horror, yes, but pointless gore like Saw, I don't get. That's what she says, and I agree. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or just total.
Well, it depends on which Texas Chainsaw Massacre you're talking about.
Probably true. Number 7, 8.
No, number 3 I think is very good. Not just because Jessica Biel is, hot, but because she's a cool heroine. And I don't mean heroin in the sense of, the drug that you shoot up in your arm, but somebody who can get the job done. And she ends up being somebody who can get the job done. I sort of like that, but yeah, I don't like senseless gore either. And the Saw was too much for me too, even though that's, in a way about seeking justice. It's it's clearly a sadist who is putting people in predicaments that they don't entirely deserve not to be in, because they've done bad things. And now, they're going to either live or die based on, their wiles. So, it's wacky. I've never been a fan of that series, but there's at least it's a twisted attempt at seeking justice. And Seven, I don't like the I have a hard time with the lionization of serial killers, making them these all-powerful individuals who commit these sophisticated crimes that are repudiations of society, or grand statements. No, they're a bunch of fucking schmoes. They're real losers and they're the most heinously corrupt, immoral beasts on the planet. And we shouldn't. I mean, they may be a good psychological study, but I just think it's awful to portray them as something they're not. Because in my opinion, they're clever predators. They can catch vulnerable people, and they have the numbers working on their side, because you oftentimes catch strangers, and it's really hard to catch a stranger who's murdered somebody. But they're dipshits who get caught too.
That's why I really like the series Mindhunter, and also the book, because it tells the stories of serial killers from the FBI profiler's perspective, and it shows you, where they figure out what, Jennifer?
That was based on a true story too.
Oh yeah, it's based on it was based on a book written by a former by the people that actually star in the not the actual people, but the characters that they play that star in the show. And they actually created like the whole concept of profiling for serial killers.
I've read everything John Douglas has written.
That's right, John Douglas. Thank you.
I recommended Mindhunter to actors. It became a part of our reading list because the way he integrates information from a crime scene is exactly the way an actor should integrate information from a script. He uses his brain to deduce clues, and his imagination to put himself in the shoes of the killer and the victim to live through what happened. And that's why his profiling has been as accurate to predict, say, this guy has a speech impediment and drives a Volkswagen, and he's been on, So that's where the real brain is. You're right. From that perspective, the guy who can put all that shit together from various scenes, who can integrate all that information, that's the fucking guy. That's the dude we should be.
The brilliant one.
That's the one they should make the movies about.
Yeah. So one more from
douchey Kevin Spacey guy who just wants to commit suicide by cop,
right.
and win because he got the guy to commit a sin, whatever.
Yeah, he should not be worshipped. So Tazy has another one for $5, in which I agree with. Nowadays, I think a lot of fanatics are self-help gurus who love to have spiritual power and control over people, just as scary as Bible bashers.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know one who was an actor who became a self-help guru.
I agree. There's one that I'm thinking of that where I can't say it, who we're going to be basing a character on the strike after. So has the name Guru in his title. But
on the cover of People magazine.
Have we answered all the questions? Because we're getting close to having to.
Yeah, we've answered all the questions. There have been so many comments in the chat. I haven't been able to follow them, but I hit all the super chats. So hopefully we will be able to jump over to Clubhouse and people can continue the discussion thereafter.
But first, we'll talk about the next show.
Oh yes, we do.
Okay,
Good
so
you go, Jennifer.
Tell them what we're doing.
The show is in 2 weeks on December 17th, and we are doing Billions.
Yay. Fantastic. I can't wait to see more than the first episode.
1. If you have time to squeeze in season 2 is really good too. That would be great.
Billions is our direct comp, by the way, for the strike. The overall tone and compelling storytelling and character nature of it is a huge influence on how we have created and developed the strike. So it's definitely going to be one of our closest ones that we can talk about related to our show. So don't miss it.
Yeah, don't miss it, guys. It'll be it'll fuel you through the holidays. So
Yeah. Billions, by the way, just real quick, Billions is you can see it on Showtime or show on demand, whatever you have, but it is it's by Brian Koppelman. It stars Damian Lewis, and I can't remember all of the other
Giamatti.
actors. Yeah, Giamatti, and who plays Wendy? I can't remember her name. But great actors, great writing. You can catch it on Showtime. I'm sure that Amazon has it as well. Amazon
Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, it's free. So just you can watch it free on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
And I love the price of that. All right, guys. So I hope you got some value out of this today. All 5 of you who are watching, or whoever's watching, maybe there's more. I don't know. But thanks for. 25. Oh, good. Thanks for watching TV Talk. We're gonna take this conversation over to Clubhouse. And good premises, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.